So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews here on Hospital Radio and for my YouTube channel. And I'm super excited that my guest today is the fantastically talented Victoria Derbyshire. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Matthew. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Thank you so much for giving up your time for me.
Not at all.
I mean, obviously, we must start off by asking, how has the last sort of year and a half been for you? Because obviously, it's been manic. It's been mad for everyone. But how has it affected you?
So, as a journalist, obviously, it's been a massive story. So, it's been hectic in that sense. I was still going into work because I was presenting BBC News. So, I was going into the office, which I was happy about. My kids are teenagers. They were, at home. They weren't in school. My husband works from home. So, I was quite glad to be able to still have my routine of going to Broadcasting House in central London. Yeah, I haven't had COVID. My husband did right at the start. We didn't really know it was COVID. It was only later that we found out. My kids were all right in lockdown one. It was the one that was in January this year that was really hard. Everyone had had enough by then. We have a Cocker Spaniel, Gracie, who absolutely loved us being around more, absolutely loved it. And then this year we got another Cocker Spaniel puppy. So the two have become really good friends. So I think compared to a lot of people, we're lucky. We've adapted. We've been able to adapt. It's hard not seeing your family. My mum lives in Bolton. I'm in London. That was really hard. So we did Zooms every week, family Zooms, loads of us. And it's hard not seeing your friends, I missed my friends. So I'm happy that we're all double vaccinated and we're trying to get back to normal.
I mean, did you find yourself, and I'm sure you've been asked this loads of times, did you find yourself doing anything different that you wouldn't normally, learning any new skills, or did you get any sort of time to just kind of do something different?
I didn't have a load of time because certainly in the first lockdown, I was thinking, I wanted to do something about domestic abuse in lockdown. It's an issue that's really close to my heart. So I suggested to the editor of Panorama, look, can we do something on it? So any free time that I had in that first lockdown, I was working on that. So I'd be doing my shifts on BBC News, and then weekends and other times I was filming that. So I didn't really find I had a lot of extra time, to be honest. Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing I had to ask, of course, is that, obviously when you're, a journalist or, a news reader and having to present news stories, a lot of the time they don't directly affect you. So I imagine they're easier to kind of, talk about. But when it's something like a pandemic that's going to affect everyone, I mean, how is that for you as a newsreader, having to kind of present that to the public? Is that something that
you're totally right? I mean, in the first lockdown, I was on BBC News every day at 9 a.m. in the morning, and I knew as much as the audience. So I really was tiptoeing through it, asking hopefully the questions that the audience were asking. And the answers were genuinely new to me because we've never had COVID before. So in that sense, I felt a real responsibility, and the audience figures were massive because people weren't at work. People were desperate for information. But I felt a really big responsibility to be calm and measured and ask all the questions that hopefully the audience wanted asking. And also, of course, people were dying from it. So I was interviewing grieving relatives. And, I've over the years, I've carried out many, many sensitive interviews. And I think I am a kind person. I think I'm a compassionate person when it comes to interviewing people about really difficult subjects. So I had to sort of do that as well.
It must be hard when you have to do those sorts of interviews because you want to get the balance right. You want to obviously make sure that the guest or the person you're speaking to is looked after completely and comfortable and happy. But at the same time, you have to obviously get the story out there.
Do you know what I find? I've always found I mean, what I couldn't do in the pandemic was talk to people before they came on air. Certainly on my old program, people would come into the studios. We would spend an hour with them beforehand to make them feel comfortable. We'd build up a rapport. But what I think I always try and put myself in people's shoes. And my experience has taught me that if you are kind and considerate and sensitive, then I think people sometimes appreciate you asking quite straightforward, direct questions. you're never going to ask it in a blunt way, but you can always say, listen, do you mind if I ask you about how you felt when your father died in hospital from COVID and you weren't able to be there with him? And actually, often people want to talk about stuff like that, you know? It's how you do it. And I have, you know, I'm lucky in that people do seem to trust me, which it's such a privilege, you know, and feel that they can talk to me.
And I think as well that, you know, when you are sort of, you know, it's a real, obviously an honor, but there's also that pressure that you have to get it right. And I must say, you normally get it bob on. It's normally perfect. But when you're kind of trying to weigh up the best way of doing things, I imagine it you know, the pandemic really adds that extra pressure, because like you say, you're doing guests, or you're having guests on via Zoom, and it just really kind of stops that human contact. Whereas when you're sat with someone, you can have that chat a bit beforehand, and that's
Yeah.
sort of completely taken away from you.
Yeah, it was different in that respect. I mean, obviously, you know, over the years I've interviewed people in remote studios, but certainly through the pandemic, there was so many normal people, you know, people that are not used to being on the media, and we're all getting used to this technology. Um, you know, people at home are downloading Zooms in order to be able to come on the TV and talk about stuff. So yeah, it was tricky, but you still have to do it and you still have to navigate it.
Now, where did the interest in broadcast and journalism, where did that come from for you? Is it something that's always been there?
No, I mean, when I was growing up, I had no idea what a journalist was. Honestly, I didn't. I didn't really watch the news. We listened to Radio 1 when I was growing up, so it was music radio. It was only when I got to uni and I started to, because a friend of mine worked for the university newspaper, I said, oh, can I do some film reviews or, you know, music reviews, that kind of thing, just for fun. And I quite enjoyed the writing of it, but I didn't think I was that good at writing. So I thought, is there another way I could do this? And then I discovered that there was a thing called broadcast journalism. And so then I started to do some work at Toxteth Community Radio Station. So it was a radio station down. I was at Liverpool Uni. So I would literally go on a Sunday to this bloke's house. They had basically a pirate radio station in the back bedroom. And I would do some news bulletins for them. I mean, it was random. It was random because I'm sure they didn't really need a news bulletin, but they were so kind and they let me do it. And that sort of gave me a teeny bit of confidence. And I carried on doing it while I was at uni. And then I realized that you could do a postgraduate 1 year TV and radio journalism diploma. So yeah, so then I applied for that.
And for you, because obviously you know you've done TV, you've done radio. Is there for you? Is there one that you prefer, or do you love the fact that you have that kind of variety and you can do a bit of everything?
I love the flexibility. I love the fact that one day I can be doing a panorama. The next I'm doing BBC News, breaking news, or interviewing guests. The next I'm standing in for Jeremy Vine on Radio 2. I absolutely love that variety.
And
I love both radio and I love TV. Radio is much quicker, much easier, as you know, Matthew. Very immediate. TV can have a huge impact. There's something about the visual that has a massive impact. So I appreciate both.
And I mean, for you, when you were growing up and obviously getting into radio and TV, was there anyone that you kind of looked up to, anyone that you aspired, not necessarily to be like, but that you thought, you know, they've got it bob on, and, you know, sort of maybe you took inspiration or advice from?
Well, I mean, when I was growing up, as I said, it was Radio 1. It was Steve Wright in the morning. It was Noel Edmonds. Sorry, I beg your pardon. It was Noel Edmonds in the morning. Then it was Simon Mayo in the morning. It was Steve Wright in the afternoon. Oh, did he do the breakfast show on Radio 1 as well? I can't remember. Anyway, so that it was music DJs that I listened to, and I knew that I wasn't that interested in being a music DJ. But I think once I got into radio, I would listen to people like Nick Clark, who worked on Radio 4, who's sadly no longer with us. I really liked Eddie Mayer on Radio 4. I liked and I loved listening to Five Live. I could not believe you could have a radio station that was so informal and such fun and yet still do the news. So that kind of conversational informality, certainly when I was in local radio, I thought, oh my God, I would love to work at Five Live. And I eventually did. And it was just amazing. I loved it.
And obviously recently having, covered for Jeremy Vine on Radio 2, I imagine that's great fun as well, because, it's very much news related, but it's also got that kind of, conversational aspect of, getting guests on, which I imagine you love.
Oh, I love it. It's such fun. And I love talking to Radio 2 listeners. And we get to play tunes, which is really, actually, that's really nice, especially when we're playing 80s music, which I love. And what I really like about that programme, and Jeremy does it absolutely brilliantly, it's just that mixture of hard news, some serious stuff, and then just some complete fun. Like the other day we did you meet your partner through your dog? Oh my God, the stories we got were so uplifting and fun and romantic, and it just gives you spring in your step.
Now, I just wanted to briefly talk about, of course, I'm a Celebrity for you, because for you going in last year, I imagine, unlike any celebrity in the past, it's a completely new experience because it had never been done in Wales before. How was the experience for you?
It was amazing. It was wild. It was mad. I went into it thinking, I just want the experience. I had breast cancer treatment a few years ago. And I think since then, I've said yes to things that before breast cancer, I never would have done. So I'm all about living for the moment and making the most of it and experiences. And what an experience that was. It was bizarre. It was cold. It was fun. It was emotional. I made some great friends. We got on really well. I'm so glad we got on well. I cannot imagine what it would be like in that intense environment where you're being filmed 24/7. And you do forget the cameras, but being filmed 24/7 with a group of strangers. If someone was horrid, I cannot imagine what that would be like. And we had such a fabulous group. We totally bonded, and we're on the WhatsApp most days, a year on. And I think we're all going to get together for the first I'm a Celeb this year for the launch show. We're all going to watch it together, or try to anyway, because we're all really busy. But yeah, I had the best time ever.
And I think one thing that really proved, or that you guys proved last year, was that people don't always want to watch bickering and arguments. And actually, especially with, the last year and a half that we've had, that people just want to see people doing well at something, succeeding and being nice to one another.
No, that's so true. And I think particularly with the pandemic, and of course, when I'm a Celeb was on last year, England was in lockdown. So it had massive audiences. And there was something about COVID and a group of people who were able to hug and not have to wear masks and who did get on that really resonated with the audience. And I think that's why the audience figures were some of the highest they've ever been for I'm a Celeb.
And I imagine as well that, when you have 2 weeks beforehand, because you had to isolate 2 weeks beforehand before going in so that you could, do all the sort of the hugging and things that people wanted to see, really. That must have been a strange experience in itself, basically being cut off from the world for 2 weeks.
You know what? Well, that is interesting, Matthew. We weren't cut off for the first week because I was Zooming my family, my friends. I was getting newspapers every day. I was actually having a really nice time just watching Netflix and having a bit of time on my own, and you never do in life, do you, ever? And then the final week, they take your phone away, they take your laptop away, they cut access to British television so that you don't see any speculation in the papers or on TV programs about who else might be going in. And I didn't know, and they didn't let me have my newspapers anymore. I didn't have my laptop, so I couldn't look at the BBC News website. So so you don't know anything about what's going on in the world. That was bizarre, really, really bizarre. But you just have to embrace it. It was really weird not knowing what was going on in the news. But I just thought, okay, well, I'm just going to read books and go for a run in the North Wales countryside. And it was odd, but I still enjoyed it.
Now, I wanted to ask, going forward, is there a dream? Something you would love to do going forward that you maybe haven't had the chance to do just yet?
Oh my God, that's a good question. What have I not been able to do? I kind of feel like I've done loads of things. Um, 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 oh my God. Honestly, I can't think of anything. That's mad, isn't it? Um, I just want to keep doing stories that involve real people and shining a light on issues that are often taboo or that have a stigma around them, and and giving a platform to people who want help with telling their own stories. I hope that doesn't sound too cheesy. I genuinely mean that. I care about people. I love talking to people, and that's what I want to keep doing.
And I just wanted to ask before we go, of course, we must talk about the amazing NHS and key workers and everyone out there that's done an amazing job over the last year and a half. So is there anything you'd like to say to any of the key workers, to any of the NHS, or to anyone who's currently stuck in hospital at the moment?
Yes, there is. To all NHS staff, you do an amazing job, and I am so grateful for you getting me through cancer treatment and basically saving my life. And what you've had to cope with in the last 18 months is just extraordinary. And it's been really tough, and NHS staff have lost colleagues, and that is just, it's just heartbreaking. So just a huge thank you. And we are so grateful, seriously. And to anybody who's listened to this, who is in hospital right now, I'm sending you my love. I'm sending you my strength. And that's a lot of strength, I have to say. And I just want to say, keep going.
I want to say thank you so much, Victoria, for giving up your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, keep safe, and you're welcome back anytime if you want to join us for another chat.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for asking nice questions and good questions. And keep up the good work.